Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. So today, I'm delighted to welcome special guest Rosanne Nieboer, who's here today to talk about a number of things, but we're going to start by talking about this notion of you already have everything you need inside you. Now, hands up everybody who's heard that idea before. Everybody, right? But I think everyone's got a different relationship with that. So we're going to explore that today and other things. So Rosanne is a yoga teacher, a chakra expert, a soul mentor, and an intuitive. And she's got her own very particular presence and quality that she brings to this work. So I'm very excited, Rosanne, to have you come on the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. I am delighted to be here. Yes.
Excellent. And also, just to let everybody know, you can find Rosanne at chakra-way.com, and that will be in the show notes, and we'll mention it again later as well. So, Rosanne, this whole concept of you already have everything you need inside you.
Yeah.
Can you remember when you first got that idea, or where that idea came in or rose up in you, or that it first became a thing for you?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. When did that arrive in me? I think that probably arose in me once I'd started really diving deep into my chakra work. Because when you start studying the chakras and you start to realize that they have so much information to offer you about yourself and about how you relate to the world and where your patterns, your blockages, all of those kind of things live, it gives you this sense of empowerment, of that actually all the answers are here. I just need to listen. Because as a yoga teacher, that's where I started. I've been teaching yoga for over 20 years. And I think I started teaching very much, as a lot of people do, just because I love the practice and the physicality of it made me feel good. And, it connected with me in some way. But I never really understood until quite far down my yoga teaching sort of world life that it was doing something far, far deeper than just giving me a good stretch and making me, feel good in my body. That it was connecting me with myself. And when you start to connect with yourself and you then add on the layer of understanding your subtle body, your energetic body, which is another term for the chakras system, once you start to understand all of that, you realize that your body has so much wisdom. And therefore, ergo, everything you have, everything you need, you do have within you, whether it's the messages that tell you where you're going wrong or where your patterns are being held, where your trauma is, also, where your strengths are, where your superpowers are. They're all there. They just need to be uncovered. And, we're a little bit like energetic archaeologists, we just sort of dig down a little bit and find the gold, because everybody who was born as a beautiful newborn baby came out perfect, exactly as they were meant to be. Their little soul just awakening back into this 3D world. And they were perfect. They had no judgment, no self-limiting beliefs, no values or anything of that sort. They were just this pure, beautiful, clean little sponge of a soul. And then over time, through our childhood, through our experiences in life, all of these layers of gunk start to get placed over us, conditioning, what's right, what's wrong, how we should respond, how we relate, all of this kind of stuff starts to be layered on top of us. And we forget who we are, society and culture just begins to erode or bury. It's not erode, because our full self, our true self, is always still there, that authentic you, that little soul that arrived when you did. But we get lost in what is expected of us, what we, stand, all of that sort of stuff. So I think that very simple thing of you have everything you need already within you becomes a real guiding light for having faith in the self, for having kindness to yourself. And, I mean, everybody who listens to your podcast and everybody who comes to me is in this space of wanting to find this authenticity, this truth of themselves, this, living this reality in its fullest expression. And I think that as a starting place is very comforting. I think it's very nurturing as an idea because we can be so mean to ourselves. We can, what that inner voice is like. Oh, it can be so horrible. And so every so often, and this work, this reminding of the self is a daily practice. Sometimes it's an hourly practice, as we go through our day. So much gets thrown at us on a daily to day basis, and we have to navigate all of it. So yeah, reminding yourself that you're here, you've got everything you need, just allows you to take a breath, take some space, come back to the self. Yeah.
Beautiful. So your route into that realization was through the chakras, through the chakra system as an access way of accessing that and realizing that. It's really interesting. I haven't heard anyone talk about that as their way into it, because I think perhaps there's a number of different ways into that realization, aren't there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people I know, and I've talked to a lot of people who are, who work with the chakras, and they've come to the chakra system first, and then they do yoga and meditation, and they come from that direction. So they come at it from a sort of philosophical point of view. And I've come to it through very much an embodied practice. When I first started working with the chakras, I started introducing them as themes as I do yoga days, and I would introduce them as a theme into the yoga day. So in the morning, so say we'd be doing root practice. So it's all about stability and safety and grounding and rooting. It's simple, it's beautiful, but it gives a theme and a reason to the class. And then in the afternoon, when you do the restorative stuff, you can then really go deep into the kind of meditation side of things, really kind of bury yourself in that depth of, and I found that embodiment of this energy was way easier for people to kind of grasp, and you drop in along the way through the physical class about how this relates to your home and your stability and your survival and to, your relationship with your body and food and all of those kind of things. So it was a very natural way for me to kind of come at it. And when I first started dropping it in, I just thought, well, this is just a really interesting way of theming classes, if you like. But then people were like, hang on, my students were like, I really want to know more. So I developed the first iteration of the Chakra-Way course, and and all of my sort of present yoga students all jumped into that, and so they did this sort of deep dive course, which had yoga and meditation and learning, so it was full mind, body, spirit side of it, and it's developed since then, onwards and onwards. And, I think that what I'm beginning to find is that actually people want a way of understanding themselves. I think in today's world, so many of us feel stuck or lost or exhausted or, have this sort of feeling that there's something more out there to life than what it's currently showing us, that, this plain old 3D life can't just be it. It can't be the real reason why we're here. And they're searching for more meaning in their lives. And so then I've kind of moved a little bit more towards using the chakras as a framework for helping people to understand that side of themselves, and to find ways through. And of course, once I have a client and we're working through this stuff, the modalities that I use to facilitate shifts and changes and so on, top of the list is always some yoga and some meditation, because we need to embody this stuff. We can't do this. I think Western psychology therapy is fantastic. There's a big, huge merit for talk therapy, but trying to solve all of our issues, trying to solve all of our problems just with this brilliant brain that frankly thinks it's quite clever and has all the answers, but actually it doesn't. Because where all your emotions and your traumas and your experiences live are in your body, in the lived emotions, in your organs, in your feet, like in the major chakras and the minor chakras. It lives in your body. So you has to be an embodied practice. It has to be something that you experience. And actually, it's really nice to kind of go, do you know what, brain? Take the day off. Let's stop thinking about this because you're just going round and round in circles, because that's what the brain tends to do. If it can't come up with an answer, it just and usually that spiral is in the downward direction. Take a day off. We're just going to lie on the floor and feel our breath. And that's going to be way more healing than any kind of.
Yeah,
no, you do that.
I love that. Yeah, so you're really talking about the wisdom that's in the body as opposed to just the wisdom that's in the head.
Yeah.
And so what sort of age were you when, so you were doing yoga already, and you then started to notice that there was more going on than it said on the tin, in a way.
Yeah.
And then you got really into the chakra system. What sort of age were you then?
Oh gosh. Well, let me think now. What am I? I think I'm 57. You lose track around this kind of age, don't you? How old you are? I think I was probably around my early to mid 40s. And I'd already been teaching. I started teaching when I was mid 30s. So I've probably been teaching for 10 years, just doing the physical side of it. And, I come from an Iyengar background, which is, those of you who know yoga knows the very strict alignment, type of yoga. And my roots will always be in that alignment and so on. But my practice has shifted a lot since then. But I think, and it's one of the interesting things that Mr. Iyengar used to say was that, because he never taught meditation, and he would say that your yoga practice is meditation. And it's true, washing up can be meditation, anything can be meditation. And, sitting cross-legged on the floor for half an hour doesn't, always work out as meditation. Who knows? So, I think I was already kind of going there, and and I'd read all of the books and the philosophy books and so on, and so I knew there was more to it. But when the chakras fell into my lap, and actually, I can tell you exactly, I think it was 2011. I went to India for the first time on yoga retreat, and I had an episode where one night my hips started to hurt for no particular good reason, and it was agony, like really like scary, painful, and this pain radiated to all my joints, and I was scared, and ended up in an Indian hospital in the middle of the night, which is always fun, but it was fine. They just gave me some painkillers and I just lay there and I got better. And there was nothing materially wrong with me. I wasn't dehydrated. There was nothing actually wrong with me. So the next day when I was talking to my teacher, and she said, well, you probably should look and see what's going on in your sacral chakra. And I was like, my what? And that started me off, because that made me realize, that awakening moment for me was all about understanding that actually I had been shoving my emotions down, as I was taught to by my wonderful, gorgeous parents who I adore. But, that was the way that we dealt with things. We don't really talk about our emotions, dear. That's kind of the energy of it. And I just shoved my emotions down. I couldn't even name my emotions. And I'd done all this work. I'd done all this yoga. I was really aware, but I was still kind of living on the outside of myself, if you see what I mean. I wasn't quite present. And so obviously the yoga that I was doing during this retreat had really opened me up, and I was doing Ayurvedic treatments and all kinds of stuff. And my hips just suddenly went, woohoo, we're free. We can finally express ourselves. Guess what? Bam, there you go. Have a shed load of pain one night. So that was the beginning of the work for me. And I was like, okay. And and I guess I probably worked with the chakras on my own, just studying, and for probably another 4 or 5 years, reading, understanding, embodying it into my own practice before I started to introduce it, before I felt confident enough to introduce it to my students. And then lockdown was the big sort of thing for me in 2020. I was just like, oh, great. I can stop doing the catering work that I was doing and actually focus on doing what I really love and what I really want to do. And that's when I launched my first course. And that's where I've been ever since. But these last 6 years, when I think where I was in 2020 to where I am now, I mean, I've evolved so much. This work has evolved so much. It's, and that's the wonderful thing. Like all of this work, it's an infinite path that you can take. It never, it never stops. This work, this evolution, this growth. It's beautiful. I love
It
it.
really is. And it's funny you should say beautiful, because I was just thinking while you were speaking that there's something about the chakra system itself that is very aesthetically appealing and beautiful, isn't it? You know, those beautiful diagrams of this sort of androgynous form with the chakras mapped and then the different colors. And because the chakras are wheels, aren't they? So
They are.
also this
Yeah.
beautiful sort of flowing, energetic feel to them. Which I remember really noticing when I was first introduced to them through a completely different route, actually through my introduction to energy work, Reiki. We were
Yeah.
taught the chakra system in relationship to that.
Of course.
And I remember having a similar feeling to yours, which this thought of this can be used as a diagnostic system, this can be used as a therapeutic system, this can be used as an awareness system, a rebalancing system, a nourishing system,
Yes.
a liberating system. You know, it's just a beautiful. And if I will just tell you, years ago when I did my master's, humanistic psychology master's, one of the tutors had developed an organizational diagnostic and intervention system based on the chakras, chakra system called the 7 energy levels, which I went and used in large corporates and training executives in how to diagnose the chakras of their organization.
Oh, wow.
And intervene. So I thought you might enjoy that.
I love that. You know, and the other thing I find really interesting is whoever I speak to, because I too, like you, have a podcast where I talk to interesting people, and so many people come on when they have some kind of method or some, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I can just relate everything you do to the chakras. And this is my big mission in life, because, you know, 30 odd years ago, God, 35 or so years ago, when I started practicing yoga, when I first walked into my first class, yoga was seen as something slightly out there. I think at the time Madonna and Sting were doing it and everyone was making fun of them for doing yoga. And I remember there being village halls that wouldn't host yoga classes, or not village halls, church halls that wouldn't host yoga classes because they thought some weird voodoo was going on. It was some kind of culty thing. Fast forward to now, where you literally cannot walk down the street without bumping into somebody in their leggings carrying a yoga mat. And every single village hall, every village, town, city has innumerable yoga classes going on. It is now completely accepted as a thing that people do. Most people have given it a try. Many people do practice yoga nowadays. And I want the chakra system to be as well known, as well understood, as used as yoga is now. That's my big mission. I mean, it's a big mission. But I honestly think that if everybody understood their chakra system, you know, even if it was just a basic understanding of where they hold their energy in their bodies. So, you know, if they, for example, had an undescribable, you know, a stomach issue, they can look at their chakra system and say, okay, so what does this mean energetically? Rather than just running off to the Western doctor who's going to give you something that's just going to deal with the symptom. And it may well be effective and wonderful. If you're in pain, great, do that. But what is the underlying reason for that pain, for that dis-ease that you are feeling within your body? Because, you know, 9.5 times out of 10, it's going to be an energetic thing that is happening to you. You know, if we look at the solar plexus chakra, that's about your personal power. That's about your energy levels, your ability to be productive. It's a very masculine, outgoing energy. But then you could also look at your stomach chakra, which is one of the minor chakras, which holds your ability to not only digest food, but to digest life, to digest emotions, to digest your experiences. And when there's resistance in any of those areas, then guess what's going to happen? Your stomach's going to start playing up in one way or another. This is such a common thing right now. It used to be everybody, when they were stressed, used to have ulcers. Do you remember? You used to have stomach ulcers. And now everyone has, and this is a horrible generalization, so I don't mean no offense by it, but, loads of people have IBS or colitis or, irritable, there seems to be these kind of trends which is, I find really fascinating in itself. But, these are all stress-related illnesses. And what is stress? Stress is about regulating your nervous system. Why aren't you regulating your nervous system? Because you don't know how. You haven't even thought about the fact that your nervous system needs regulating, or that your life is out of control, or you're carrying too much, or you're too exhausted. People are asking too much. You've not put enough boundaries in place. All of these things is energetic work that treats the root cause of the symptoms that your lovely Western doctor can treat the symptoms of. But he's sadly not got the time to actually dive deep with you and find out what is at the root cause of this thing.
So I've got, I'll pick your brains now. I've got a friend who's had this on and off, very painful kind of gastric in the esophagus, so above the stomach, the esophagus, this pain that keeps coming back, often in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That's a hot, fiery kind of pain. Which chakra would you think that might be related to?
I would say that sounds to me like heart chakra stuff. That sounds like a lot of repressed. And my first question would, when it's heart chakra stuff, is there a grief that hasn't been resolved or processed properly? Because then that's rising up. And I think it's, like all of these things, it's never one simple answer. And a chakra reading would give that very, strong clarity. We'd be able to work it out. But it's probably a mixture between the solar plexus, the manipura, and the heart chakra, because it's the gastric juices that are coming up to burn the heart. So this is, it's first of all, I'd say, because you're feeling it in the heart. Is it a heartache? Is it a grief? Is it an unkindness that's happening to yourself? But in the solar plexus, the element there is fire. I love working with the elements of the chakras because they're really instructive. They're really useful. So you have fire. And this sounds like you just said, it was like, feels like burning, it's heat. So this is an overactive solar plexus chakra. So that fire is creeping up and it's happening. Lots of people would say, oh, he's lying down. And so the gastric juices are just, going along with gravity. But from an energetic point of view, it's much more interesting to say, okay, so when he's in repose, or when this person is in repose, when they are allowing themselves to rest, the fire of the solar plexus flares up. And there's this unspent energy, or this misdirected, active energy that's there, that's coming up, that has a strong message, that is got something. I when I do a chakra reading, it's always so fascinating because I can read the major chakras. I also read the minor chakras, which adds so much depth and subtlety to a reading. And I can come back having done all my ticks and crosses and numbers and whatevers, and it says something to me, but not everything. It's not until I actually start to have a dialogue with that person and go, so this is where we found an imbalance and there. And so if we put these two together, it kind of feels like, and then see, this is bringing us back to you have everything you already need within you. Because when I do a chakra reading, all I am doing is holding up a mirror. I don't think I've ever told anybody anything they don't already know about themselves, but we are incredibly adept at hiding those things that are uncomfortable.
Really, I've never noticed that.
That is one of our human skills, which is quite extraordinary. And so when you have a third party gently going, well, maybe it's, this is what this represents. So how does that resonate for you? And they go, yeah, ooh, so uncomfortable kind of like, I gotta own up to this one. I got to, it's there. And this woman who I've never met before, who doesn't know me and is on the other side of the world, is telling me some truth about myself that I don't really want to face, but actually maybe I do because so that's what I mean. Like your body holds this information, and all you need to do is to learn how to interpret it. And sometimes you need a helping hand. Sometimes you can do it on your own. But yeah, with somebody like your friend with this heartburn thing, it would be really interesting to find out what is, because the body is surprisingly literal. You know, there's something that's burning him up from the inside. There's something that's kind of bringing this heat that's unresolved, that's staying in, and somehow it needs to come out. So I would do lots of cooling breath work. I would also, the other thing that I love to do, if somebody's got a slightly overactive um, solar plexus chakra, above you've got the heart, the element there is air. So if your solar plexus chakra was underactive, I'd say lots of breath work. Try and get that fire going with the breath work. But if it's overactive, you go beneath, you go to the sacral chakra where the element is water. So if your fire's too hot, too scary, what do? You put water on it, damp it down. So what are the elements of the sacral chakra that you can bring to lower this fire? Well, the easiest and this like blindingly obvious, simple thing to do is laugh. You need to have a laugh. And a good old fashioned laugh. You need to have fun. You need to let loose. You need to go and have a dance. You need to, goof around like an idiot. Make yourself laugh. Find the lightness in life. Find some creativity, some playfulness. Because the waters of the sacral chakra will calm down. But you can imagine, let's go back to that classic image of the stressed businessman with an ulcer, with a stomach ulcer. Like they're stressed, they're balding, they're sweating, what do the obvious thing that they need to do is to take off their pinstripe suit or whatever it is and go and have a laugh, go and play. Go and play in the water. Go and swim in the sea. Have watch something silly. Enjoy yourself. And you can see how that's such a clear antidote, but energetically it all stacks up. So there are a million and one different ways that we can use this innate knowledge that we have within us. When I say that, everyone's going to go, well, yeah, duh. Stupid thing to say. I mean, it's the right thing to say, but I knew that already. Yeah, but he hadn't necessarily applied it,
Yeah, that's the thing I'm really picking up on. You're kind of emphasizing the how any of the symptoms we're having are actually gifts. They're information we're being given about something that is being called on.
Yeah.
But we tend to respond to those by saying, well, I can look after my health once I've got rid of that bit of pain. Instead of saying that bit of pain is the guide.
Exactly.
And as you say, it's all very well to know something, but it's very, very different to apply it.
Yeah. And this is the thing that I think that a lot of people find quite frustrating, because I bet you that there are a lot of people who listen to you who are a fair way down their journey. They've learned a lot of stuff. They've listened to, they meditate, they go to yoga, they've read the books, they've listened to the podcasts and all of that good stuff. And they know that they have a pattern within them that isn't necessarily healthy, that doesn't serve them, that they would like to shift, some inner belief or some inner dialogue that they still have. And they're like, oh my God, I've done the work. Like, why haven't I changed? Why is that still happening every time X happens? I do Y. Like, I winds myself, and you get frustrated with yourself. So there's a very, a very big truth that the conscious mind can be very aware of these patterns, but the subconscious, on that very deep level, the subconscious, which we have, small amount of control over, but the subconscious needs to really believe that this is going to be a safe, new way of operating, because all of those patterns that we've held have been there in order to keep us safe. They are protections. so that that particular incident never happens again. I'm going to protect against it. I'm going to go into fight or flight. I'm going to get the hell out of here when, I don't know, X happens. And so to retrain your subconscious, to retrain your energetic body, which is basically what we're saying here, takes time. It takes consistency. It takes patience. It takes kindness. This is kindness is one of my kind of pillars. I have a chakra method that I use. So I use this acronym. Is that the right word? I keep saying it and thinking that doesn't sound like the right word, but so C is for clarity, find your clarity. H is for home, come into your body. A is for awareness, work that out. K is for kindness. You can't do this work until you stop beating yourself up. R is for reframe, reset. And A is for aligned action, actually putting this into your. So there's a kind of a flow that we can move through, but that patience and kindness, oh my God, it's such a huge part of this work, because we get frustrated with ourselves and then we get cross and go and eat a donut,
But presumably your clients get to spend time with you.
Oh, yeah.
Which is going to be very supportive and lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm going to come over right now and have some sessions. You know what I mean? Because you do have this lovely, warm energy. But also I love how you are quite, you're very grounded and pragmatic around it. You're not like, oh, well, no, if you just sit quietly and go into your core. And, no, it's very much, no, the chakras are telling us something. Life is real. Something we can do in the real world. And that's that's refreshing, and that's very accessible, I think, for the modern human being.
Yeah. I love me a bit of woo. I mean, I'll take that all day long. But yeah, I am very grounded, and I find it an interesting thing because, like you, I speak to a lot of people, and there's a lot of people I speak to who've had like what I call grand awakenings, like they've had a moment, lights and bells and waves and, like fall down in the woods and, sort of big moments of, burning bush type moments. And I sit there going, oh God, I really like that. I really want some of that. But it's just not going to be for me. My journey is a slow and steady, step by step. And I think that is actually way more relatable to the majority of people who don't have the wham bam awakening. Just slow and steady wins the race. But it also, we are here after all to have a human experience. And it's all very well communicating with, extraterrestrials and Lemurians and spirit guides and that, wonderful. But actually, maybe this is the experience we're having, the human experience. We're here to experience the whole gamut, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what we're here for. And but doing it with our eyes wide open, doing it with every cell alert and enjoying it as we go.
Amazing. Well, I can only imagine you're amazing to work with, Rosanne.
Oh, thank you, Catherine.
Let's just remind people where they can find you, which is chakra-way.com.
That's correct.
So there's loads more information on there. So I just want to ask you a couple more things before we wind up today.
Okay.
I think we can agree that there's a lot of life is interesting in the world today. There's interesting things going on at the very least. There are a lot of people who are dedicated to being part of the solution, whether they are leaders, healers, artists, teachers, parents, whatever they are. Some of those people gravitate to this show because they find some nourishment in it. So some of them are listening to us right now. Yeah. So is there something you'd like to say to those people in relationship to what we've been talking about today?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the first thing that comes up for me when I think about everybody who's listening is to please bring this topic, whatever it is that you find really interesting in this whole world of healing and energy work, whatever it is that kind of sparks you a little light in you, please talk to everybody that you meet about it, at the school gates, at the dinner parties, in the queue at the supermarket, whatever. Like, try talking to everybody. And I think that there's an idea that people are going to be dismissive when you start talking about this. But what I've discovered is that people are way, way more open. And I think the more open conversations we have about energy work, healing work, this other way of being other than just living like a standard 3D, life, the more and encourage, so do your bit, spread the word, have the conversations, raise the vibration, because the more people higher vibe into a high, I don't like the hierarchy of higher, lower, but it is what it is. That higher vibration, the better the universe will be, the better this world will be. So yeah, talk to everybody you can. Oh, I really listened to, and it's such an easy conversation to start because you go, oh, I listened to this podcast the other day. Everyone's always saying that. I listened to this podcast the other day and they were saying X, Y, and Z. What do you think about that? It's such an easy way to begin a conversation. And then you end up having interesting conversations about deep stuff rather than just about the weather and politics, which frankly, we'd all rather not do right now.
I completely agree with you. Beautiful. I love that. So we've actually talked about a lot today, and I've so enjoyed talking with you. Has there been a favorite part of our conversation for you today?
Oh, just your warmth and your openness and you've given me so much space. I feel like I've just talked nonstop, but yeah, thank you for some really beautiful, I love the whole thing. It's been wonderful to connect with you, Catherine. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful to you for doing this work. This is really important, special work that you're doing. And I'm so grateful to you for holding space for this. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Yes.
Thank you, bless you, and the same to you. And I've actually taken some interesting snippets from the conversation for myself and for my friend with the esophagus issue. That your particular, because I've worked with the chakras on and off for years, but in a completely different way. You've brought to me today personally is a whole new window into that, which is just fascinating, and I'm really enjoying that new piece of nourishment. So thank you for that.
You are so welcome, Catherine. I'm so pleased.
So everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening. Notice what your chakras are doing right now. This has been a fantastic conversation. Do check in with Rosanne's website, chakra-way.com. Do check out my other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. And if you think you might like to find out more about what the other things I'm doing, you can go to beingspace.world. So have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time. And thanks again to Rosanne.
Thank you.